Hello, I'm Dave Buchanan. I'm here with Insomniac's Ted Price talking about Fuse. So, Ted, I was just wondering if you could perhaps tell PS3 players what we should be expecting from Fuse, if perhaps gamers who've played past series like Resistance and Ratchet and Clank.
I think you'll recognize a lot of Insomniac DNA in Fuse. And this is a unique four-player cooperative game where we are offering some very cool features for players who are both single-player and co-op fans.
Sure. So I know Fuse recently has gone through somewhat of a change of direction with the art style. I was wondering if you'd perhaps talk us a little bit through what inspired that.
Well, I think that every creative endeavor is a process of evolution, and every IP we've built at Insomniac, whether it was Ratchet and Clank or Resistance or even Disruptor, has gone through major changes. I think the changes we went through with Fuse were very public changes, but they were driven by our desire to have the kind of weapons that we know players demand of Insomniac titles. Weapons that have a lot of punch, that are really different from other shooters, and that, in this case, complement each other with their functionality.
Also, you did Ratchet and Clank All for One about 18 months, 2 years ago. How beneficial was that in terms of being a preparation exercise for the Fuse's co-op play?
I think it was really informative in terms of understanding how four players play together. Even though Fuse is a very different type of game, we learned a lot of lessons on All for One that we applied in this game. And I think it also made us recognize that I think in general we recognize that it's as important to have a fun single-player experience as it is a two-player experience, three-player experience, or four-player experience. So we spent a lot of time balancing the game to accommodate different numbers of players.
What's it been like, the transition to becoming a multi-format studio? Because obviously you had such a close relationship with Sony and still do, yes, for over 10 years. So what's the transition like, being partnering with EA?
Well, practically we built a brand new engine and new tool set to support multi-platform, and that's been a real benefit for us across the studio because it's helped us to refine our production processes and become more efficient in terms of how we develop games. In terms of working with EA as a new partner, that's been great. In fact, I'm here because EA is sponsoring this event and allowing us to talk about Fuse as one of the only new IP to come out in the spring in a time where there are a lot of sequels on the market.
You recently unveiled the new cover art for the game. I was just wondering if there was any trepidation going into that, because obviously there's been a little bit of controversy in the industry recently about like BioShock Infinite released a new cover art and there's quite a lot of blowback. Was there any sort of worry when you released that new cover art that gamers might have an adverse reaction to after they'd seen like the old style of the previous cover?
I don't think there's a lot of trepidation. I think that we expect people to speak up and share their opinions, good or bad. That's just what the industry is all about these days. And I tell you, we take it seriously. We listen to the feedback, and in a lot of cases, we have acted on that feedback with Fuse, the game. And it's been great. I mean, that's part of who we are as a company. We listen to our community and we take their comments seriously.
How, you've obviously moved on from series that you spent, the best part of a decade with. What's it been like moving on from perhaps a series like Resistance, particularly? Resistance 3 was incredibly good. I assumed you'd really hit your creative stride with that game. Was it kind of sad to parting the ways?
For us, Resistance will always be close to our hearts. For me personally, it was a game that I really enjoyed working on. A brutally difficult game to work on at times, but so is every franchise we create. But as a company, for the last almost 20 years, we've been building new franchises, and I think that's where we get most inspired, is the opportunity to build a new world, to come up with new gameplay mechanics, to come up with new weapons, and to tell a new story. For us at Insomniac, it's really fun and scary at the same time because you never know what people are going to think. And in this case, with Fuse, we were very transparent about our process and showed off how the game evolved. And I'm really happy with where it is now, and I think players are going to see a lot of Insomniac, a lot of the traditional Insomniac flavor coming through in the final product.
One thing that seems to define you as a studio, you never seem to be happy resting on your laurels. You seem to constantly want to reinvent your franchises. What's been kind of the thinking behind the last couple of Ratchet and Clank games, because obviously we had All for One, and we've had Q-Force quite recently, which introduced tower defense elements. So what was the kind of thinking process between perhaps taking Ratchet away from the more traditional like action platformer routes to explore new territory?
Well, our goal was to come out with Ratchets that were smaller in scope and tried new things, tried to took a fresh approach to the Ratchet series, and frankly we wanted to learn from fans' reactions and learn about where we could take that franchise. So they're great games. I'm really proud of what we've accomplished with them. And I think if you look at player comments out there, especially with Full Frontal Assault and Q-Force, they're really positive.
Would you like to perhaps go back to the more traditional template, sit down in a cracking time at some point in the future, like a really, big explorative, action-packed Ratchet again?
Well, I think that speaking for the team, we all want to continue experimenting with Ratchet. I think that it's from the very beginning, it's been a universe that really didn't have any rules. So we felt free to continue taking it in new directions, and maybe that's what we'll do. I mean, I don't like to talk about where we're going with future games, so all I know is Ratchet will always be near and dear to our hearts.
I feel very close to you right now.